ClowdyWorld, and I ain't gonna lie, man. Today we gotta talk about what's going on with that man Kanye West. And today we're talking about Kanye literally being a crazy dude now, bro. Now I've been a real defender of Kanye, man. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I've grown up listening to Kanye's music. I've grown up listening to a lot of his type of sound, from seeing him go from neo soul to being really a young dude from the streets that really wanted to put a different perspective of the South Side out there, to then becoming this big egomaniac, to now basically being looked at as part-time GOAT, part-time literally psychiatric patient. So we're going to talk about this sworn affidavit regarding Thomas P. Connolly, which was one of the chief operators going on at Yeezus, or Ye's brand overall. And we're going to talk about how he says that the company as a whole is really being disgusting toward Ye, and is kind of just mooching off of everything he's earned and worked for throughout his entire career. So when it starts off to say, being duly sworn, I hereby swear under oath that we follow a faithful and accurate account of the facts. My legal name is Milo Yiannopoulos. I'm 39 years of age, and I reside at the Garbutt House. But it sounds like one of those Harry Potter things, I ain't gonna lie. But he says, I began my career as a political commentator, New York Times bestselling author, and award-winning investigative reporter. And since 2018, I have served several congressmen and all that jazz. Now, between 2022 and 2024, I worked for the rapper, fashion designer, and entrepreneur Ye. Now, this is getting interesting. I resigned from his company, Ye-Z LLC, in May 2024 on a matter unrelated to the compliant, at which time I held the position of chief of staff. I was the most senior employee in the company, with duties analogs to a combined chief executive officer and chief operating officer. Basically saying he was one of those main dudes that even if the position didn't say it, he was getting paid like it and he had to rank like it. So he has a lot of sway and he's been there for a long time, so he's seen this trend with Kanye. Now, prior to my work with Ye, I served as a senior congressional aide to Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, and before that I worked for a series of wealthy private individuals in Florida and possess a respectable track record exposing fraud, theft, and ill intent of every kind. In fact, it is quite excellent, which is why I have been hired by some of the wealthiest and most famous people in the world to do so. So they're basically saying that they've been doing their thing for a while, and it's clear that something's not really adding up, whether it's from Kanye's camp, his people, or just what's going on a deeper level. So let's keep breaking it down and get into it. So they said, I offer this account in support of my complaint to the California Dental Board submitted today pertaining to reckless, unethical, and dishonest exploitative information and belief. Now, illegal conduct by Dr. Thomas P. Connolly, DDS, for the unavoidable of doubt. I write in a personal capacity as Ye's most senior member of staff for nearly 2 years, motivated by urgent concern for his safety and his health, in my own capacity and on behalf of several individuals close to him. I am not in a position to authorize the release of Ye's medical records, nor would I presume to do so without his consent. So this dude, ain't gonna lie, as things are starting off, he's starting to really set up a good understanding of what's going on. Basically saying that Kanye has been doing his thing for a while, and sometimes he can't really be focused on every individual person on his team, and sometimes a team can start swaying with different people that you didn't want on that team, but because the artist is so locked in on what they're focused on, or his family battles, his legal battles, his mental health battles, his president battles, Kanye's focused on so many things that he can't be very, specific and intricate about who is in every foundational piece of his circle. So this dude is basically saying that he's peeped that, and now he's gonna, go forward from there as a whole. So to continue, subject of the declaration is that a copy of this complaint and supporting documentation has been provided to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Oh, nah, he's locked in. Okay, so this ain't just him coming out on Twitter and saying this. This has already been sent off to some big people, because you have to understand that even though people like FBI and stuff don't get active on every single individual case, if you reach out to them with a lot of evidence, like a lot, and you have a pretty notable figure, they're probably gonna do a little due diligence, especially because their entire purpose at times is to literally start, be a little more active to them people that are the bourgeoisie. They catch a lot of them up more so than the average police catch a lot of local and urban criminals up, things like that. So Thomas Connolly is a dentist licensed in California and who maintains the office off Roxbury Drive in Beverly Hills. Now, the affidavit pertains to actions which include an unlawful supply of enormous quantities of nitrous gas to wealthy, famous patients for explicitly recreational use. Now, the physical transportation of 4 surgical-sized canisters by Connolly himself into the patient's home, charging more than $50,000 per month for a service, continuing to supply the gas long after the emergence of distressing symptoms that led to widespread concern and comment, instruction to the patient in the operation of nitrous gas canisters, knowingly encouraging their use in the absence of a qualified anesthesiast, and upon information and relief, the wrongful and fraudulent extraction of millions of dollars by Connolly and his business associates from the patient he knew to be confused, dependent, and weakened by an addicted state. Now, before we continue with this, there's always an issue in these type of situations where I want to call out where, yes, it's true that there are these big things going on and, Connolly and the dentist person should be held liable and accountable, but you are a multi-millionaire / billionaire. A lot of courts are going to have a hard time believing that this individual dentist was the person that set you on this spiraling trend of actions, especially when Kanye's been known to have had done this thing with different substances for a while, had to literally go to different institutions for a while to clear and, clean himself up from that stuff. It's like, it's going to be very hard to just not only prove that Connolly has, done these things, but it's going to be hard to prove with nasty or intricate intent that he made these decisions just to harm Ye. And that seems like that's going to be the central focus of either the lawsuit or the affidavit, is that this was done with intentional malice, because you have things like he provided a recreational use, but then you also are stating that he made an intentional decision to harm Ye, knowing that these issues were affecting him on the long term. When you conclude two different things like that, those are two specific arguments to make. Is this man supplying him with recreational consistent use because he's a negligent doctor? Or is he intentionally trying to use and abuse Ye's trust and using his addiction to funnel money? You could try to argue both, but that's going to be hard to be a central focus in the court of law when we have to prove without a shadow of reasonable doubt. There's a lot of reasonable doubt when you can't decide what narrative you're going to come at these issues with from that perspective. Just my 2 cents. Let's continue going on the affidavit about Ye and his, evil doctor. So, testimony from Connolly's business partner that he has defrauded dozens of athletes. Whoa, never mind. And client base by charging them for natural stone diamond orthodontics, but in reality, using cheap lab-grown diamonds for as much as a 15,000% price difference. A written confession from Connolly that the most of his 2 bankruptcies were entered into illegally for the purposes of evading taxes, and upon information and belief was also calculated as an excuse Connolly from a potentially large court judgment pertaining to life-altering surgical mistakes made on a woman's mouth. Now, testimony from Connolly's business partner that he owes a debt of more than $2 million to a Mexican cartel, and that this cartel owns his surgical practice in Beverly Hills and uses it to launder money. So bro low-key locked in on some, crazy talk. Not really crazy talk, but it seems as if Connolly's been having a pretty big issue going on for a while where he has been frauding, taking, and finessing some pretty big people, man. And this might come back to haunt him, especially with what we're seeing right now, where it seems like every issue that's going on, Connolly is kind of going crazy with. Now, it says that he was elated to chief of staff. The Yiannopoulos man said the most senior employee in the company in January this year, after previously holding the position of political director and head of public affairs. So I learned that the company had spent $200 million in 2023 while bringing in no revenue whatsoever. Basically, Kanye is just taking out big lump sums of money and just wasting everything he's worked for his entire career. It's looking very, very gross and very negligent on behalf of Kanye's chiefs of staff. In addition, the company faced hundreds of millions of dollars worth of legal exposure, immediately placed the business into emergency measures, terminating more than 130 people in my first month on the job. In 4 weeks, I brought Yeezy's $48.8 million equivalent annual salary bill down to almost $30 million, with no observable effect on company operations. Meaning that even though these people were fired, y'all are spending so much money on random stuff, whether it's people finessing the company, buying their own things, buying their own properties, buying their own, useful whatevers, and there's nothing of benefit coming back to Yeezy. So even though 130 people were fired, which about $15 to $20 million of salary does make sense for 130 people. That's a reasonable amount of money that's saved because of that. He thought that would have some type of effect on the fiscal quarter. $15 million cut every 3 to 4 measures. That's about $60-70 million of profit you're taking in and saving, while you were just having a big $200 million letdown. Let's say you're losing $200 million a year. Going from a $200 million to $130 million deficit is a very big increase in productivity, and shows that this Yiannopoulos dude knew what he was doing and had an understanding of financial fiscal responsibility. So him saying that there was no change at all in how the company was affected is a clear showing that something fishy is going on with Yeezy. And let's break that down, because clearly there has to be more going on than meets the eye. Ye's personal spending habits are a stuff of legend, but they are his prerogative and his private affair. I spent the majority of my time preoccupied by the state of and moving quickly to reform his music and fashion empire. During February and March, I devised and deployed strict spending protocols, travel policies, limits on expenses, and other financial controls to rein in the company's appalling profligacy. I brought in a chief financial officer who had overseen multiple government spending procedures and audit basically about a decade of Yeezy operations, so we could advise Ye more wisely than his previous administration. So bro was basically saying that he noticed that there's been such a big issue that they brought in a private government audit professional, someone that he trusts for more than a decade, to do about basically a 10-year backlog to see where's his money coming from that are issues. We know Ye is Ye. He's a business and a music mogul bigger than just a company, so he'll sometimes spend more than we make. That's reality. That's what happens when you work with a bigger dude, but so much money coming in, no one's affected. But he's saying that yes, he's a mogul, but this is a very large amount in the red, that even if you're Ye, that's just a little bit too much to, just be letting happen. And if you have any salt worth your job, you're gonna figure things out, or at least bring it to Ye's attention. Whether he changes or not is not your business. It's about whether Ye at least knows what's going on and where we go after that. So that's a good idea and a good breakdown. So I brought in a chief of staff to advise Ye more wisely. We began slashing and burning the enormous web of dormant and indebted entities, a legacy of 2 decades of neglect, which were now a danger in their own right. I discovered dozens of fraudulent schemes, audacious greed, double billing, duplication of labor, entirely unnecessary employees collecting 7-figure salaries, and all manner of other senseless wastes of money. I prioritized the identification of the most egregious thefts and frauds in case the perpetuators were still in Ye's orbit, terminating their contracts, including many described to me as untouchable and leeches. For example, I discovered that Paul Johnson, a former gallery owner and longtime advisor to Ye, had charged him $6 million in 2021 for a Damien Hirst sculpture that could not have been worth even $2 million, and then proceeded to claim millions of dollars a year from Ye in the years after, allegedly to oversee his archive. In fact, under Johnson, the archive was being plundered. Irreplaceable artifacts are now gone forever thanks to losses and clear theft under Johnson's tenure, including Ye's Grammys, personal effects from the births of his children, and even his mother's certificate of passing. Very gross behavior and very, very evil thoughts that have been going on. Now, Johnson has bragged drunkenly to colleagues that he and the company's former CEO, Matt George, made millions of dollars via illegal inside trading of Gap stock in 2021, before Yeezy's partnership with Gap was public knowledge. And Johnson had asked for and received his entire 2024 salary in advance a few weeks before I took over. I terminated his consultancy after he lied to me, claiming it had been Ye's idea to pay him a year's salary in advance because Ye was presented with a bill for nearly $1 million in bogus storage fees. Johnson has not returned the money, nor to my knowledge made any attempt to apologize for taking advantage of Ye so outrageously and for so many years. So these people have been basically stealing millions and millions and millions of dollars from Kanye for nearly decades. And when someone who actually has the knowledge to do their job has a problem with it, these leeches and these untouchables have clearly made an issue and are trying to figure out how to get back on these teens, because they're taking millions. But you have to realize these people have been on Ye's money collar for years. So they're spending maybe half the money they're bringing in finessing, which is disgusting behavior, but it shows you why they're trying to get back in his good graces. It seems as if they don't understand. They got a gifted horse. They got a gifted horse in the mouth. They looked it in the mouth. And all they had to do was be genuine and honest. And they still couldn't do that. Very disgusting and deployable behavior. I discovered that Ye's archive had been plundered to exhaustion. There is no way to know the true extent or normality of the thefts from Ye's archive, but my staff was overwhelmed by the scale of task. In light of Ye's unparalleled historical significance as a producer, recording artist, and clothing designer, I took the decision made to request assistance from the art theft program at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. With the advisable responsible Paul Johnson dismissed, I informed Ye that for the first time in half a decade, Yeezy no longer had anyone on staff making more than $1 million a year. And since my departure in May, I understand the company has returned to its prior state, and many of those found guilty of theft and abuse have returned. It was in this context, having installed myself as a mandatory common sense check on new hires, which for the first time in Yeezy's history now included criminal background checks, that I first encountered Dr. Thomas Connolly, who was introduced to me as a dentist advising Ye in design and installation of his widely reported and much admired titanium prosthodontics, first fitted in January 2024 at a cost of $850,000. Now, Connolly was introduced to Ye by Billy Walsh, a music industry figure who was paid $1 million for his work on Vultures Volume 1, but could not identify a single track he worked on when challenged by Yeezy staff. Connolly is a former columnist for the Huffington Post, where he once enlightened readers on the dangers of oral and cold sores. These days, he is a celebrity dentist, which in his case means both of he has a celebrity client and that he is desperate to become famous in his own right. He enjoys little success at the latter, but his clients are significantly newsworthy and his creations sufficiently garish that Connolly has been provided by the New York Times as the man who creates million-dollar smiles with diamonds. So Connolly has basically been using his stature and his finessing with these high-level million-dollar athletes and famous people, and even Ye and Yeezy as a whole, to basically make himself famous and leech off of and mooch off of the success of other people, while be getting paid millions of dollars for not even a single piece of help in Ye's entire process with the Vultures album. Very grimy and very green. So Connolly described himself as the father of diamond dentistry, but if his business partner, self-described computer hacker Idris Quiba, who resides at 3413, not speaking anymore of that because that's an extreme misuse of private information, that nickname may not survive for much longer. Idris Quiba is an erratic, inconsistent witness who seems to enjoy, at least in his own mind, playing all sides. But he shared conversations and documents that satisfied me he had done extensive business with Connolly and could fairly be described as his business partner. His grievances against him appeared to be legitimate and his frustration genuine. And Quiba says Connolly charged rappers and cartel bosses for natural stones, but puts vastly cheaper lab-grown diamonds in their mouths instead. Now, this is a really big one because, bro, these artists, entertainers, and, potential members of those organizations will really get someone going for that stuff. They'll get people going for less, for scuffing their shoes. So when you play with these people's time like this, it's very vehemently disgusting, bro. Especially because you're rich. You can just charge them more for the proper pricing. On some real talk, bruh. It's that greed. Everyone has to finesse, because if you don't finesse, you feel like you're not doing your thing, and it's very gross behavior, man. Let's continue. During various text and telephone conversations, Quiba gave varying accounts of how many of Connolly's clients got fake stones, but they included Quiba himself, which Quiba offered as the reason for his break-in with Connolly and his willingness to supply information to me, the Yeezy head. On one occasion, Quiba told me he discovered the fraud early enough to have his stones replaced with real diamonds. And on another, he said he had stones extracted and replaced. Either way, this is a matter for a full investigation by law enforcement. People have to understand, these businesses that provide chains and diamonds and stuff like that, they have a lot of legal background checks and things to go through. There are issues with stuff like blood diamonds, stuff in other countries. It's a lot of very specific, intricate workings that go into diamonds in the jewelry industry, whether you know it or not. Just because some of the big dogs are playing very gross and very weird doesn't mean that a lot of the small and medium-sized, individuals don't have to play very, very, very close to, federal doctrine and doing things the legal way. And so when Connolly is doing this, he's not only abusing his power with these multi-millionaire athletes and people like Kanye West, but he's abusing his skills and abusing what he as a dental professional is doing. You're supposed to help people, whether people like it or not. Your teeth health is one of the most essential things in life, period. It's not just about looking nice. A lot of your life is affected by your teeth health. Real deal. You could look it up. So when you see stuff like this, it just shows how many professional and medical professionals are just being vehemently and grossly just using their power in a negative way. You're using clients' ignorance, because clients, if you're a medical professional, most people will be ignorant in terms of meaning there's a lack of knowledge as much as you are in your extremely specific niche of focus. If you're a doctor that focuses on the heart, the health, the bones, I will not know more than you no matter how much money I have. You are a professional in that place. Google won't help more than 10 years of literal dedication to the craft. So when you use people's ignorance over these things as benefit, it shows the type of disgusting character you have, and it shows the person that you are. So presenting himself as a well-connected, successful entrepreneur, Thomas Connolly supplied Ye with advisors he was either in business with or whom he had discovered on Google mere days beforehand and who demanded gigantic sums for their service. He lobbied hard for George Welsh, a greengrocer who was on the verge of being hired by Ye on guaranteed 3-year contract to give advice about opening retail stores. I intervened to ask for a copy of his proposal. Welsh shared a compensation package that amounted to over $10 million. Disgusting. As I noted in a later declining Welsh's services, this eye-watering figure wasn't arrived at via upside-down profit share percentage or any other mechanism, but compromised entirely of fees, charges, allowances, bonuses, premiums, and penalties. Welsh failed to provide reference of any evidence he had charged similar fees in the past, even when asked repeatedly to do so. So these people are just trying to overtly try to fraud Ye, and it's very gross and disgusting behavior. It makes you wonder, where did these people come from? How long has Ye had no one pulling in the reins? And it's sad because this job sounds stressing right now. Like, I can only imagine doing all this stuff to bring things back together just for someone to try to get you going and do everything over again, which is just so gross. And it shows that you, what do they say, bro? No good deed is left unpunished. No good deed is left unpunished.